Good morning and welcome to the Leadership and Insurance podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bond, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by Maya, who is Chief Business Officer of Lemonade. Maya, how are you?
Good. How are you? Happy to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. No, I'm fine, thank you. I think we were both just swapping stories of gloomy cities that now have a small bit of sunshine.
It's true.
Yeah, New York and London come to life in these times. Yeah, it's always a better time to catch me, I think, when there's a slither of sunshine in the world. Um, um, Look, I don't think Lemonade needs any introduction, but just for those kind of small section of people that do not know who Lemonade are, it'd be wonderful if you could introduce yourself and obviously the Lemonade business.
Sure, with pleasure. Lemonade was founded in 2015 as an insurance company, full stack insurance company, which main purpose is really to try and change a lot of the dynamics and the experience that customers have when they interact with their insurance companies. So really consumer first, consumer-centric, wanting to offer personalized insurance, starting with renters, homeowners, and then later on expanding into pet insurance, life insurance, and then most recently car insurance, which really completes the deck from a personal lines perspective. We're also a digital first insurance company, meaning that we have built our entire tech stack in-house and have used that in order to not only provide a superior experience to our customers, having all of the digital foot points connected and powered by AI and really kind of making the experience much better, but also really building a robust data set infrastructure internally that allows us to gather a lot more insights and ability to eventually better price and underwrite customers when it comes to insurance.
Amazing. Thank you. I always think it's good to start there because I think, Lemon is so publicly talked about. When we talk about insurtechs, I asked ChatGPT, name the biggest insurtechs in the world. Lemonade came number one.
That's good to know. I never
Obviously,
tried that. That's good to know.
yeah. Oh, I'm very lazy on my research now. No, it was one of the first things I toyed with. I got it to write an article, and I think everything I've asked it so far has come back with Lemonade in it. So that's quite
Wow.
interesting. But
Wow.
but obviously it is that, is it, we've talked about on the podcast before, what does the insurtech even mean? And of course, it's an insurance company. It's a digital first insurance company, and it built its own tech stack, so it goes out in the insurtech bracket. But obviously, at its core, it's a very much an insurance company. New markets, I think, has been something that I've been watching because it came with a very specific renters product and phenomenal customer experience, which a lot of people have talked about. You've expanded into these new markets and product lines since founding. Just interested about the process of deciding which areas to enter and like what are your sort of criteria for success in those ventures?
So I would say we're very much focused on, as I said in the beginning, and I kind of use that as the first sentence, is we are thinking in a very different way in terms of from a consumer centricity point of view. And we had the privilege of starting that as we were starting the company. And so when we launched Renters, which was very much a low-end disruption to the market, really targeting younger consumers who were looking for a much more tech-enabled experience, less talking on the phone, more enabling themselves, and really that combination of the experience together with the value, us being a B Corp, and of the pricing and the values that we offer our customers really took off. But then those customers need more things when it comes to insurance. And so as you're thinking about our business strategy, which is really about growing with our customers, making sure that we offer them additional products that they need and that they're asking from us, that serves dual value. One of them is our customers know to rely on and to expect the certain things that they've received from us on Renters in other product lines that they're interested in. But on the other hand, that allows us to dramatically change the business economics because you acquire a customer at a very young age for relatively lower cost of acquisition But then as they naturally go through their life cycle, so moving from renters into buying their first condo in New York, or then buying their first home, they adopt a little dog, like happened a lot during COVID in the past few years. They need pet insurance for them, and so on and so forth. And they get married, they need life insurance, and so on and so forth. That really enables both the strategy of serving our customers and making sure that they have a complete offering of all the products that they need, but obviously also really serves our business, which is strategy, which is removing a lot of the cost of acquisition. All of a sudden, the same customer, which cost around $100 to acquire, all of a sudden is paying you 5 times, almost 10 times more when it comes to our car and homeowners products, without any additional cost of acquisition.
Incredible. I mean, that was going to lead me on actually to my next question, was about the approach to customer acquisition and retention. I think the retention strategy has always been quite clear in that trying to offer that superior customer experience, and whether that just be from the technology or the products itself. Although that might be my outside looking in principle, but has your approach to customer acquisition and retention, has it evolved as the business has matured?
I think it's really important to understand how Lemonade is structured. And I think then I can talk about the evolution of, how did we go through from one step to another? And it has changed and evolved quite a bit. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we have invested a lot in building in kind of a centralized system, a unified system, what we call the customer cortex, that basically allows us to not only, kind of categorize and gather the data and the different data points from customers and different data sources, but also adds a tonnage to them. So adds the connectivity between all of these data points. So think about everything around our customer profiles, our marketing, our growth budget, our underwriting, our onboarding from the product perspective, our claims experience. Everything is operated under the same brain using similar connectivities. And so when you just started off, that looked pretty, pretty skinny when it comes to data and the level of data or the nuances of data sources that we actually had plugged into that system. But the more customers joined, the more interactions they had with the systems. And to be frank, when it comes to insurance, the more claims we experienced, meaning the closing of the data loop. So being able to take a customer all the way through from acquiring them through a certain channel, giving them a certain opinion, walking them through how they interact with the product, what types of tickets they're asking, how much interactions they have with our customer care, and then eventually, did they file a claim? And if so, how large was that claim? All of that basically helps us become better and smarter. Very different than I would say in your podcast specializes in insurance. But if you think about other direct-to-consumer companies, really the only thing that you need to consider is the cost of acquisition, and then the lifetime value in terms of the retention, and then also in terms of, how much can you cross-sell, upsell that customer from the original product that they purchased. When it comes to insurance, there's another big portion which amounts to claims. How much, what's the severity and the frequency in which we believe a certain customer is going to be claiming with us. And so when we just started our acquisition, we really looked at a very, very basic model. So S2S, which is spend over sale. So how much are we spending versus how much are we getting for that customer? And obviously you want to be spending as little as possible and getting a largest possible sale. But that was very rudimentary. It was very basic and included everything that we knew, which wasn't a lot when we started. Then that developed into kind of what we call deep S2S. So kind of, another level removed, which included a little bit more of like the risk factors and things that we saw, for example, around dunning or other things that, included a little bit more nuance, a little bit more texture, but again, fairly simplistic. Then we moved into LTV. And even within the LTV model that we had, we're now edging generation 8. So I think generation 1, 2, 3 were not even in production because we felt they weren't sophisticated enough. LTV 4 came out, then we had LTV 5 and so on and so forth. And in every iteration, you become more nuanced. The differences between different cohorts becomes more identified and more clear. And what's really important to understand is that LTV, which basically is generated and informed from the customer cortex, plans and instructs all of our different models and AIs that we have across Lemonade. So if you come in, we have some sort of an opinion about you, and that determines how much we're willing to pay for you in certain channels. So all the way from whether or not we're even going to be playing the game of trying to acquire you, and then setting the bar of how much. And then when you start the flow with Lemonade, it changes the questions that we will ask you, the flow that you're going to experience. And then it will change. Obviously, when we do our filings, it impacts a lot of our pricing and how we think about the distribution of risk. And then also impacts, of course, our cross-selling, offering you additional products and whatnot. So everything is informed under the same brain, which is dramatically different than how insurance is done today across the board with some of our competitors.
It's I'd love to run well, I can probably do it. I'll get the script, but I'm just loving how much customers is mentioned, and I know this is an oversimplification, but it's everything's coming back to that. What does that customer need, and what do they need, and how does that need evolve over time? Because I think particularly, I mean, the UK market is particularly price driven and price sensitive. It fascinates me that the behavior of insurance companies doesn't seem to take that LTV into account, which surely they should do. Just an anecdotal example. I have my car insurance with a unnamed insurer. They've just sent me a renewal quote, which is 30% higher, with no explanation as to why.
Yeah.
And the risk hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And I've just changed insurer, like immediately. It was like there was no interaction, there was no phone call. It's like there's nothing to send. So you've just lost a LTV because no one wants to change insurer. It's just really
Yeah. I haven't met the person yet. I haven't met the person. No,
but I think insurance is guilty of not thinking like more B2C businesses that look at LTV. And I just think there's an immaturity around that in personal lines insurance.
I think it's that, and I think it's also the ability to connect the dots. If you, again, and a lot of the incumbents in the industry, which we obviously have tons of respect for, they know a lot. They know a lot about their customers. They know a lot about where their customers are going. The problem is that a lot of those insights and data sources are kind of, distributed across different platforms and different sets of brains that operate under different mechanisms and different rationale. And so really what I would say what's novel about Lemonade and what we're trying to do is connect all that dots, because all of these things are connected. Your LTV for you to renew your car policy, if you don't take into account that you might be also a homeowner or a renter, and not to take into account, your previous history or what we expect you to be doing in the next few years, and then offer you a combination of prices and products. That's really how you should be doing it. And then obviously optimize the flow for it and optimize the claims experience and your customer care experience and all of your touch points across with the different carrier.
I want to switch gears slightly, and in a similar vein, I think something that was really prominent in the messaging when the business was more infancy was the social impact side of the business, which I know is still core to the message. Do you have a measure of how this kind of social impact message has impacted customer acquisition? And then sort of follow on from that. So, and I'm very guilty of stacking questions and then letting you run with it, but just to see where I'm going. I'm also was interested to see how that was impacted during maybe like the COVID lockdown time. Did people get more interested in social impact or less interested, or, I suppose, and whether that drove customers?
Yeah. Great question. I think I'll start with maybe from the onset. And I find myself talking often to entrepreneurs who are very interested in, adding that social element into their company. And it's no surprise. I mean, 2018 study in the US showed that 86% of US consumers want companies to take stand on political and social issues, and 64% of them, I think, will buy from a company that supports some sort of cause or has some sort of kind of a social element in their proposition. And so this is something that is, I would say, that is a lot more top of mind for companies today. And I think what was extremely unique about, Shai and Daniel's approach when it comes to Lemonade is that they did it from the onset. So from day one, giving back was part of the business model. Aligning interests with our customers was part of the business model. We were a B Corp since we launched the company. And when you go, and I don't know if all your viewers know this, but as you buy a policy from Lemonade, part of the onboarding process is for you to choose a cause that is near and dear to your heart, depending on your kind of social give back preferences. And then if there's money left at the end of the year, for every person who chose that charity from that cohort, we give money back and donate it back to that charity. And that does two things. One, as I said, I think it speaks very clearly to our target demographic that that this is something that they care about. And we see a lot of that in social mentions. And again, insurance, going back to not wanting to switch insurance, is not something that people have a lot of positive connotations when it comes to, especially when you're looking at social media. And we see a lot of social media mentions for Lemonade when it comes to kind of, around Give Back Day or in general through the year, people kind of being very excited about the fact that they're able to choose a cause and that Lemonade cares about that. But I think more than that, we're also seeing some really surprising instances with interactions with our customers when it comes to claims. So beyond the social element, we've also built a model that really aligns interests, as I said, where at the end of the day, if we didn't pay that money out in claims, then we will give that money back to charities. And so we see customers filing a claim for stolen goods, then finding or recovering some of them, and then sending us checks back, which I can tell you, I didn't grow up in the insurance industry, but we have our share of insurance kind of veterans on the claim side, and they've never seen such a behavior of customers sending checks back to their insurance company. But I think that's that. And I think what we want to do is get our customers to be thinking about insurance more as a social good versus a necessary evil, which I think more than not, a lot of people kind of, that's the name association they play with when it comes to insurance.
Yeah, I used to work in claims. I don't think we received any checks back ever. So yeah, that is quite unusual. Yeah. I was actually running a moral argument about whether I'd do that myself as well. I'd like to think I'm a good enough person that I would, but who knows? What a moral quandary.
I won't hold you to
it. Looking ahead for, the business is matured now, publicly traded, 8 years in. What do you see as some of the kind of like biggest sort of challenges or opportunities for Lemonade in the next kind of 5 years? And what's the kind of a plan to address those?
So I think we spoke very, very deeply about this also during our investor day, which the company is going through a really major shift right now. We've been very much heads down focused on launching all these products and this portfolio of products that our customers essentially asked us in many ways, shape, or form for us to offer it. Because this is kind of, I would say, the way customers purchase a lot of these products today is bundled products, auto and home go together when it comes to the US market. But also because, we felt like this is something that Lemonade can offer a superior experience to them for their insurance needs. So really the shift that we're going through now is how do we get all these products to work together? We're now at a very, very modest integration when it comes to what we measure as MLP, which is a multi-line product percentage of our book. We're at around 3%. I think when we presented, that number has grown a little bit, but the best in class when you look at the insurance industry in the US is around 60%. So more than 20 times our starting point. And so we have a lot of room to grow, and that's really where you kind of, you change the entire economics. If you look at our average policy value for our customer, it's around the average of like $350. We have some customers, by the way, who pay us, in north of $10,000 already today because we've built this suite of products, but that's definitely not the majority. That's definitely not the average, but that shows that we have the capability to sell multiple products, to offer you additional services, which, as I said before, changes our business completely. But we need to start driving that number up. I think the US average is around 3,000. So if you think about that, it's almost 10 times more where we are. And so I think it's really about, there's nothing here that is extremely complicated or hasn't been done before. And I do believe that, Lemonade will be able to do that in a different, effective way to kind of get customers onboarded into additional products. And the first thing is just availability, to make us available in, other states, and make sure that customers have the ability to purchase more products from us. But once we unlock that and invest in the experience of what do you offer to which person at what time, right? I mean, I think that goes back to your experience of, I've had my renewal, price goes up, no communication. Like, you want every one of these touch points to be extremely customized and thoughtful in terms of how do you do these things, what do you offer different customers, and how do you make sure that you're kind of increasing and building trust so that that customer will stay with you for longer and will buy more products from you along the way. I think that's really kind of the main focus for us as a company.
Yeah, the connecting the dots bit really resonates as well, because we just, regardless of being a podcaster or be a running a recruitment firm, specifically insurance, having worked in insurance, I'm still fascinated by being a buyer of insurance, because I've been doing the insurtech space, and from a recruitment standpoint for 5 years, I've been doing this podcast for nearly 3. And we talk about a lot of the same things about customer journey, getting the kind of information right at the right time. And I'm fascinated by how challenging that appears to be, because I'm usually moaning on here about my insurance renewal, or my experience with my health insurance, or my experience as a homeowner and buying that insurance, or a small business owner. And it's all really about the how anonymous you're treated as a customer most of the time. And you think, I'm all of these things, and I buy all of these things together, and the ability to kind of tie those together. But really, it's clearly about communication, because making the point about my car insurance, they're still emailing me every month, thanking me for being a customer. I'm like, I'm not a customer anymore. And the fact that even your marketing doesn't know that is fascinating to me. So, I think your ability to clearly knit those things together once you've now got a suite of products is very exciting.
One of the interesting things that I read lately is that the United's loyalty, basically business, is valued higher than United Airlines themselves. And I think that goes to show that if you're able to connect with customers, and you're able to customize, as you said, and make it not anonymous in terms of the interactions that you have, and make it deeper, I think that's real. But it's really hard. I mean, I do have to say, looking at some of, and again, Lemonade is not short of disadvantages in terms of our time in the street and data. And we're still, I think, in many ways, we have ways to go on many fronts. But I do think that advantage of having one system that's connected and not having to go, I mean, some of our competitors in the US have been around for more than 100 years. They've kind of, gathered different systems, acquired, grew through acquisition. Each acquisition requires, different systems that interact. And a lot of these systems are basically managed by third-party operators. And it's difficult. So I think it's not without cause that a lot of these things are not as connected as we would like them to be.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I mean, yeah, what we've talked about before on the podcast is a lot of the sort of more established longer term insurers have almost like different engineering and tech teams as well, because it's as much about maintenance and sewing together some quite outdated tech stacks and just keeping them alive, let alone looking at kind of innovation. So there's a tech debt there. I was just going to actually ask you this, and this is something that I didn't ask ahead of time, was talking about the tech stack. You built your internal tech stack yourselves, because 8 years ago it probably didn't exist. I wonder if there's a reflection internally now that because the insurtech community's evolved, and some of the kind of B2B SaaS businesses that are around, are you augmenting now by, do you look at external tech and tech partnerships now in a way that you probably wouldn't have done previously?
I think we've done that from day one. We've never been obsessed about owning and developing everything in-house. I would say it's not the Apple approach of it has to be Lemonade on every single tech that we put. Every time we develop something, we'll look and make sure that this is the best in class. This is the most cutting edge. And we have many examples where we felt like there's better tech outside and integrated. But what's really powerful, and that's I think moving forward, we probably are going to talk about ChatGPT and where the AI world is going now. But building that infrastructure the way we've built it allows us to much more quicker and much easier to connect to these different tools and integrate them and kind of get value out of them in a much more effective way. Because you don't have to, kind of try to connect it to these different systems and then different codes, and you get immediate value. So the moment you plug it into our system, which was already native to API, able to connect it, so that puts you in a completely different place. When we started Lemonade, we looked at many different solutions for what we ended up calling Blender, which is basically our system for managing our customers. We looked at many other solutions, and we had two main issues beyond the cost, which was pretty astronomical. I think that we had two issues. One of them was it wasn't as agile as we wanted it to be. So it wasn't able to connect different things, from security issues and other things, which, are and IP issues when your business is selling software, you want to make sure nobody's copywriting it, and you have concerns that are irrelevant when you build things in-house. And I would say the second thing is that the ability to change things. So we change our internal system, multiple times a week. In order to fit the changing requirements, either from our customers, from internal reasons, efficiency and whatnot. And if we had to rely on someone else to do each and every, beyond the cost associated with it, it would just take so much time and would make us move much slower.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. As part of our research, and some people are surprised we do research, but we really do. And we were talking to your team ahead of time. One thing that we didn't know was, and it seems obvious now, that you have a chatbot named after you. So the Lemonade chatbot it's called Maya.
Yes.
How did that come about? And is that the ultimate staff retention tool? Naming a bot after you, it makes you pretty sticky.
I would say a few things. First, it's a really, really good fun fact for cocktail parties, mainly with insurance people. I would say only there it becomes interesting and exciting. And I always give the disclaimer, especially when I'm meeting new employees, that the bot is much nicer than I am, so that people stations. But I think that the more interesting, I would say point on that is really the philosophy and thought process that Shai, one of our CEOs, our co-CEOs, really had when he's thinking about AI. A lot of the voices that you hear today have, kind of the super optimistic or pessimistic, I don't know which band you belong to, on where this revolution is going to take us. And I think Shai's point of view has always been that AI should be looked at as an extension to humans, and almost as an exoskeleton to our team, and adding it where it makes sense, and then removing it and moving to a human where it doesn't. And I always offer simple examples where, say that you want Alex to kind of, just add your significant other to your policy, or you want to change your address, or you just want to change some of your coverages. Most times you really don't want to talk to anyone on the phone. You know what you're doing. You want to be done with it. There's really no need to do it, on the phone. And if you could do that with a chat, that would give you a lot more satisfaction. And we're seeing that, by the way, with the reviews. When we look at these types of tasks with people who talk to our customer representatives or kind of self-serve themselves, the reviews for our chatbot are much higher, which means this was made for that. But if your house, God forbid, burned down, or your pipe got burst, last thing you want is chatting to Maya. That's the last thing you want. You want someone to talk to you over the phone, walk you through the process, make sure that you understand that you're being covered, and that you know everything that you need to do in order to be completely refunded with everything you need to make you whole again. And then I think really what happens when you use AI in a smart way, and you use it in the right places, then you take off a lot of the load from your customer care team and your claims team, and you enable them to really spend their time in the right places with the right empathy, dealing with more complicated situations. And so using an employee to represent our AI really is the manifestation of that philosophy of, we have a person at Lemonade that works out, we're not replacing humans, we're extending and expanding their exoskeleton to allow them to handle more things.
Yeah, no, and I'm in the pro camp, and I echo that sentiment so strongly. I mean, funnily enough, I put a post out on LinkedIn today discussing exactly that. Well, the first thing I was doing was mocking all of my wonderful recruitment and marketing professionals
That always
out
goes
there.
well. That always
Yeah,
goes well.
yeah, everyone's now got really long posts every day that are really well structured and laid out. And I thought, well,
Yeah,
that's great,
yeah,
but
yeah.
then it raised an interesting question. I was talking to a law firm this week, and we were discussing about that's been highlighted as one of the businesses and industries that might be under threat, along with marketing, along with kind of copywriting, and we both said the same conclusion. Recruitment's been put in that bucket as well, but I feel like I've been told my role is going to be redundant every year. I've been in this for 17 years. But what I would reflect on is exactly that. My role looks nothing like it did 17 years ago. It was about my networks. It was about meeting people face to face. It was about building literally that sort of almost that classic black book. Now it's about we have quite a sophisticated tech stack. We have, like most businesses, we've embraced AI, and so what do we do that for? We help clients write marketing materials with that. We help clients write job specifications with that. We can use it to produce content for ourselves, and I suspect as it gets more sophisticated, we will use it to find candidates, and of course there are tools out there already. Recruitment's a perfect example where if you're going to make a big life decision, like where am I going to go work, and you want to talk to a human, like even if it's only at the kind of interview stage, that we're not going to bypass that. So the idea that we would in claim situations and legal situations, like if I'm going to court, I do not want to roll out ChatGPT and that, I like the idea of it.
But maybe some of the prep for that, for that is done. So I think it's really about understanding, as I said, like what are those points? So if you even think about insurance as a whole, right? Like insurance is such a, requires such super intense ingestion of so many data points, in terms of even when you file a claim, think about all the files, all of the different reports that you need to gather together. When you talk about filing, when you talk about pricing, these are huge efforts. And when you need to do competitive research around your filing and all of those things, there's so many areas where you can literally make your pricing, your actuarial team, you can just make them into superhumans and reduce all of the work that they need to do around the data gathering and all the places where human error is in abundance, and reduce all of that in order to give them the perfect tools in order to think about things more strategically, and be able to be a lot more effective and efficient in their role.
Yeah, and I think I hate all this sort of doom mongering around it, because it's again, when we come back to people, what do people want to do? Meaningful work. What do they not want to do? Admin that could be better served by technology doing. So yeah, I'm a huge proponent of it. Although I'll check back in 5 years if I've been completely replaced. And I'm a recruitment prompt king or something. But that's fine. I wanted to jump ahead because I was going to talk about the erosion of competitive advantage about AI, because I suppose that is an interesting point. I think one of the benefits of being a business that's evolved its own tech, including kind of some artificial intelligence tools, because the big thing people have done is rushed out and use things like ChatGPT, and we've already seen Samsung's engineers putting patented data on there. It's not protected, and it needs to be, and therefore it's not as simplified as going, oh, we'll just adopt that, because you're in a regulated market. So your competitive advantage, I imagine, still remains very strong because you've built some of that stuff in house. Do you think that's where the arms race will be, is to actually adopt these practically in house?
Look, I think we don't know yet where exactly all of the implications of these new technologies that are coming in. I can say that this was something that as Lemonade, we expected to happen. This is not surprising to us. We knew that the next revolution when it comes to insurance, but also other industries, is going to be around AI. And it's been a while where the real talent around AI and data science has left, I would say, a lot of the insurance companies, and most of it is sitting in tech companies. And so this is something that I would think Danielle spoke about from the day that Lemonade was founded. And a lot of what I talked about before in terms of how we've set up our system was waiting for this to happen and kind of being prepared for it. So when you think about these new tools that are coming out, they have to be interacting with something. They need certain logics, they need data sets to connect to, they need the ability to connect to these data sets, they need the ability to connect to certain logic. And when we built Lemonade from day one, we said, we want to make sure that everything we built does, first of all, as I said, is connected, but also, follows similar logic, follows similar models, and everything, is connected to that same system. And so whatever tool comes in, again, given all the regulation and safety and, protecting our customers, but as you plug it in, it's much easier to connect it to a holistic system versus, trying to figure it out. I think eventually everyone is going to be using these tools. I don't see a way other than that, especially in an industry, the data and data sets is, I would say that's the product. That's what we're selling. We're selling the ability to price customers according to data and the risks that they represent. We're not selling toasters. So using AI and using kind of the revolution that's happening right now with data consumption and analysis and customization, that's this industry was built to to take full advantage of it. And now the question is, are you set up as a business to make the most out of it, or do you need to kind of change a lot of the architecture in order to be able to plug it in?
It's that native inbuilt acceptance of change. I wanted to talk about that as well, because I don't think innovation in tech is one thing. Innovation in culture and people is probably the thing that really drives that from a business perspective. You've been with Lemonade since the 8-year window that you've been around. There was huge growth, like big investment rounds, IPO, post IPO challenges. Like, how does Lemonade maintain like this really strong sense of culture and employee brand through such a dynamic period of time?
So I think it goes to two things. First of all, think about yourself. I think when you're thinking about joining a company, a lot of the things that drive you is the mission of that company. And then for the employees that we bring, going back to the question about the values and the B Corp and the give back, a lot of our employees come to us because we're a B Corp, and they actually search for jobs, looking through the B Corp portal and finding us that way. And so I think the fact that you're part of a company that is disrupting an industry that has a really, really big goal ahead, as opposed to have already achieved and now is optimizing, it's a lot more exciting. It attracts a certain amount, certain type of talent. And I think, we have a really long way to go. We're just getting started. And so I think that has been extremely helpful for us to really get the best of the best in a lot of the areas that we're hiring for. I would say the second thing is that we've done a huge restructuring of ourselves as a company over the time. We keep changing our structure. We're currently at a structure that has, I don't know how much you're familiar with it, with squads and tribes and companies that basically allows for a relatively small group of people to work on specific problems. You have all the different functions that you need, as opposed to a centralized function group that supports different businesses. So all of the relevant functions sit together to solve the problems that are specific to the business and that they're working on, which allows for a lot of agility, which allows for them to move much quicker and also feel a sense of ownership that I think really you lose a lot of that as you grow as an organization. And that really has allowed us to keep that vibe of accountability, and every person kind of, starting something and finishing it and signing off their name on everything they do. I said, we've been very thoughtful about it. I don't know if this structure will, survive or how much time more it will survive. I think we continuously look at, how we're structured and make sure that we're as effective and that our employees is as motivated as we want them to be.
I think circling back to this sort of use of artificial intelligence, one of the conversation I had about talent this week as well was actually hiring people on their ability, but basically like raw talent, raw intellect, but then essentially the ability to accept change and work in a dynamic environment. And then of course you need subject matter expertise,
Yeah.
but how valuable is that is going to be in the future and continue to be valuable, as opposed to people that can deliver and are smart and can adopt to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly in super fast growing businesses like yours.
And I think it's almost like the question of, are you an above or below average driver? Where every person will say they're above. I think most people will self-attest that they're, that they're really good with change. Where I think obviously we're split, like with everything else. And so that is one of the main things when I interview candidates that I test for. And I ask a lot of deep questions around, the ability to adapt to change and, previous behaviors around change. And so I think that's because Lemonade, more than I would say even our peers in the industry, it constantly evolves and constantly changes because of the way we're structured and how small we are compared to our competitors. And so that is extremely important. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I think we're approached the time, and I love, for a guy that runs a recruitment company, it's nice to finish on a talent-based question. So I'm going to leave it there. But Maya, I just want to confirm that I've not been talking to an AI-generated chatbot.
No, this is still me. Maybe next year. No, this is
me. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great if we could do one like that? That'd be brilliant. It'd be like the ABBA
She
exhibition.
will be nicer, that I can promise.
Well, I can't thank you enough. I know you're really busy, so thank you so much for finding the time. Been a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Same here. Have a good day.
Thanks.